We're fighting a common enemy. The enemy is subtle, hidden. It possesses the minds of people in proximity to you because it possessed the minds of people in proximity to them, their parents, their teachers. How does it infiltrate the minds of those people? It has their permission. Hello and welcome to the Fen Den. I'm your host, Sean Allen Fenn, and my goal is to win your hearts and to change your minds. I had a conversation with a woman who lost her mother and father. Her father passed away, leaving her mother to support the family. She battled cancer, which she recovered from, and died after that suddenly of unrelated causes. Her mother supported her and her sister on a part-time job, raising them and putting them through school, getting very creative about paying bills. She would send in a check with a phone call and say, "You have the check in your hand. You can't touch the money for 2 weeks, but you have the check." My name is Sean Allen Fenn, and I am so grateful to be able to make time to give you this podcast. What this episode is about today is the journey to become the ideal version of yourself. Asking the right questions. Fighting a common enemy. Who this podcast is for? I'll tell you who it's not for. It is not for negative-minded, hateful people. It is for those who don't subscribe to the myth of the middle class who, like me, are on a journey to become the ideal version of himself or herself. It's for people who recognize that the rules of the past do not apply to the rules of now and in the future. As things continue to change, the world has become an entirely different place than it used to be when your parents were growing up and their parents were growing up. In the industrial age, pre-internet, now everything is totally different. We acknowledge what the rules have been, and you and I realize that there is always an exception to every perceived understanding of a rule. Rules were made to be broken, right? Do you agree? Well, some things will never change, and that is the laws of the universe, the laws of nature that are constant. This podcast is about the exceptions within the rule. My book is called The Power Within the Freedom of Choice. A person can get on the waiting list for it on my website, seanallenfenn.com/book. Let's get into today's episode. By the way, if you click like, subscribe, and share this episode, and you go and sign up on my website and show me a screenshot, I will give you an advanced free copy of my book. It was 1955 when author and historian C.N. Parkinson published an article for The Economist that stated the adage that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So it became known as Parkinson's Law, that if you give yourself a week to complete a 2-hour task, psychologically it will increase in complexity and become more daunting so as to fill that week, adding in more stress and tension about having to get it done. It's just an observation. It doesn't mean you can physically build a high-rise on Fifth Avenue in 1 hour with both hands tied behind your back. But it works because people tend to overestimate how much time they need to get it done. I've tested this, and I have to be honest with you, it takes some serious practice. It is a skill that you have to learn how to do. Let me explain. What if you could collapse time? So the time that it would have taken you to do something in 3 years, what if you collapse that time and do it in 3 weeks? And it's just about as safe as investing in the stock market. You have to know what you're doing. It takes practice because you can lose. You can lose a lot. But that risk that you take, you have to feel that level of discomfort in order to reap the rewards of it. Let me explain. This is why this is the risk that you have to hedge when you're trying to collapse time. In other words, if you were faced with a task like you had to solve a puzzle. Let's say you have to put a jigsaw puzzle together, and it's a really elaborate jigsaw puzzle with a lot of tiny pieces, and someone put a gun to your head and forced you to solve that puzzle, to put this jigsaw puzzle together in 10 minutes. And you had a gun to your head. Could you do it? In the original Star Trek, there was an episode where these aliens would create their own new world through mental force, and it was referred to as the reality distortion field. And the reality distortion field is the perfect description to describe how Steve Jobs would make people believe in the impossible, and he would collapse time and distort the perceptions of his audience, distort the sense of scale and proportion as to what was possible. It's that reality distortion field that gave us the iPhone. And not everyone can accomplish things like that, to create a whole new category and reinvent something like the cell phone, which completely changed how we interact with our whole entire world and each other from there on out. But there's also a high risk that you will fail when you take risks like that. And the only way to hedge that risk is by having a metacognition. Without the metacognition, that is becoming aware of one's awareness, you can't recognize your lack of ability. When we tend to have a low ability, it's a tendency for people to have an illusion of superiority. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where we actually overestimate our ability. So being able to objectively evaluate your actual competence or incompetence is a skill set in and of itself. The amazing phenomenon was the superpower of a single mother with a part-time job, being creative and resourceful in a way that managed to provide for her family after her husband died. Her husband, my friend's father, was an artist and writer who worked 2 jobs to support his family, put his daughters in university, which I commend him for, by the way, for being so dedicated to his family and giving all he had to make sure they were taken care of and his daughters went to the best schools. What I call into question is what he did to himself and how that impacted the future of his family. In the words of my friend, his daughter, he worked himself to death. His dream was to be an author. He was the artist type who worked as a bank teller, working overtime, getting paid by the hour so his kids could go to university and to the top theater classes until one day he had a heart attack and drops dead. People tend to overestimate the extent to which their opinions, beliefs, preferences, values, and habits are normal and typical of those of others, assuming that others also think the same way that they do. This false consensus lends itself to reinforce the illusion of superiority that's caused by a desire to conform, to be liked by others in a social environment. It's fear. It's the fear of being ostracized by your community and not being accepted. And that is our common enemy. The enemy is subtle, hidden. It possesses the minds of people in proximity to you because it possessed the minds of people in proximity to them, their parents, their teachers. How does it infiltrate the minds of those people? It has their permission. Permission is freely given, like an apathetic carnival ticket taker who lets everyone in indiscriminately for free. The criminals, robbers, doctors, and lawyers, doesn't matter. Because this ticket taker lacks one major skill set: discernment. What's discernment? It's a skill set because you have to learn it. Distinguishing between what is, what you wish was, and what is the higher truth. Hey, if you're listening this far, I just want to acknowledge you because you are the right audience for this, and you're not like other people who are not ready for this yet. I really appreciate you. Please like and share and subscribe. Share this with people who you think it might resonate with. Now, as I've been sharing this with you, you may have been wondering, okay, Sean, I hear you. We're fighting a common enemy. How do we do it? How do we win? Focus on the desire. Pretend for a moment that you believe in a greater intelligence than your own. It's the energy that put you here in existence. What does greater intelligence have that caused it to put you here? And what do you have that causes you to do what you do? Avoid pain, move towards pleasure. What it has and what you have is desire. Greater intelligence has the desire to give, to bestow upon you life, breath, hope, dreams, air, blood, trees, food, sex, abundance. You and I have the desire to receive. When you were an infant, your first memory may have been receiving love, care, food, milk. You couldn't stay alive without your parents giving you care, changing your diapers, providing food and shelter. Every successful entrepreneur that we've heard of, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, focus on the same thing as ordinary people. What do you mean? Desire. The difference is the magnitude of the desire. From the desire springs forth the intention. It has to be a clear intention. It can't be fogged up and polluted with worries and anxiety and overwhelming scarcity. There has to be a clear stream from your desire to your intention. Now, your attention must be on your clear intention in order to focus on your desire. Let me say that again. There has to be a clear stream from your desire to your intention. Your attention must be on your clear intention. In order to focus on your desire, in order to become the ideal version of yourself and fulfill your purpose, let your intention be clear. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Your intention can't be dirty. It can't be unclear. It can't be foggy. It can't be nebulous. Or petty concerns that take you away from your higher calling. So watch out, because your enemy is going to distract you. It is lurking. It's out there to kill, steal, and destroy your dreams and your finances. And you can't let that happen. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? This podcast is not for you. Might I suggest turning on Fox News or CNN, or continuing to scroll through Facebook, and you'll see another report of Trump enacting dreadful actions against immigrants, which will set you off to the point where you click the angry face emoji and comment about Hitler, and then you realize that you're late for work at a job that you hate because your boss is incompetent and a trained monkey could do your job, but you were desperate for money to pay off your student loans, your rent, and your car payment. They're overdue, and you're afraid you might be coming down with something because Sally in accounting has a sick 4-year-old who passed along the flu, but at least you have benefits and a 401k, even though there's been talk of layoffs and department closures, so you have to save your money, which means you can't afford to go to the big playwright conference in Philadelphia this July, even though it was your dream to become an acclaimed playwright with a hit production on Broadway, but you couldn't get hired after college in the field you went for, so you settled for a safe job in middle management at a podiatrist ankle gear sanitation storage facility. And you have this idea about an app. You have this idea for an app that's like a Tinder for Uber drivers. But anyway, you're sacrificing your dreams to put your kids through college. Even though you've been pummeled into submission by crushing student loan debt, your kids won't have a chance at job security unless they get a degree. And since you get paid hourly, you're going to have to pick up more hours to make the mortgage payment. So I guess the Broadway musical you wanted to write, Frozen Banana Hammock, the full Monty meets Ice Capades, I guess that's going to have to get on the back burner. Well, instead of flying your life on autopilot, for those of you who are my audience, my true believers, my society of exception, for those of you who have not been deceived, what if you ask yourself a new question, a set of questions? What is my heart's desire? How clear is my intention? The ideal vision of my true purpose? And how audacious is my ask? And can I draw my attention on my audacious intention? If I could give one major thing to the world without being selfish and limiting my give to myself and my immediate family, I'm not selfish like that. What would that look like And how would it sound? And how would it feel? I wonder what would have happened differently for my friend's father who died of a sudden heart attack before he got a chance to publish his best-selling novel. I wonder if her college degree that he died to pay for, I'm just curious if it was worth it.